Greetings from Amera Astronomy Center and Jordan Planetarium at the University of Maine. My name is Sean Lotch, and this is our virtual sky tour and astronomy update for the week of June 12th through 18th. And in this week's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the New Horizons mission and some interstellar navigation measurements it's been making. We'll also take a look at our Milky Way galaxy and talk a little bit about distances in space. And then we'll talk about Ophiuchus, a constellation that is sometimes called the 13th zodiacal sign, and some of the special things about it as well, along with, of course, our quick tour of the night sky. Well, let's go ahead and begin. We're going to start off by talking a little bit about the New Horizons mission and its recent stellar navigation measurements. So New Horizons was a mission that was launched to Pluto back in 2006. It took 9 years to reach Pluto, which is quite some distance out in our solar system. So it arrived in 2015, and it's continued on ever since. Well, recently, New Horizons has made a couple measurements of something called parallax. And parallax is basically the apparent shift in an object depending on its distance. Now, you can do a little experiment with parallax here at home. You can take your thumb, and if you put it up in front of you, close one eye and then close the other eye, you'll notice your thumb appears to jump versus the background, or change position versus the background you're looking at. Well, that's the idea of parallax. You're looking at it from two different points of view to see how far something is away from you. Well, now, recently, the New Horizons mission looked at parallax for two different objects. We used a measurement of our view here from Earth and then from the New Horizons. And down on your left-hand side, you're seeing Proxima Centauri, the closest star to us, which is about 4.3 light years away. And you'll notice that little shift in its apparent position as viewed from Earth versus New Horizons. And on the right-hand side, you're seeing Wolf 359, the second closest star to us, and its shift versus that background of stars. So again, we can use parallax to measure those distances, again, by looking at the shift, and that gives us an idea of how close or how far away something is. So, New Horizons, as mentioned, is a little bit over 4.3 billion miles from the Earth currently, and it means that light will take a little over 6.5 hours to reach us here on Earth from New Horizons. Now, light itself isn't reaching us necessarily from New Horizons because it doesn't have a light source, but it does send back radio signals, and those travel at the speed of light. And that's how we get our information from that New Horizons mission. Well, we do want to talk a little bit about the Milky Way, and so we're going to do so. We're going to move forward here to our next little bit, which is on the Milky Way galaxy. And we want to talk about distances. So 100,000 light years is roughly the distance across the visible Milky Way. And so what does a light year mean? Well, that's the distance light travels in a year. We can start off by looking at light travel time in general. So light travels 186,000 miles per second. So that's 1 light second, if you will. And of course, light is the fastest thing we know of in our universe. 1 minute, it is traveling over a little bit over 11 million miles. And it takes light 8.3 minutes to reach us here on planet Earth. And a light hour, of course, is just between Jupiter and Saturn. And moving out, we can see that light, even though it's the fastest thing, our solar system seems like a big place. Well, 1 light day is about 16 billion miles. And as we keep going out, the edge of the Oort cloud is roughly a light month away. And 1 light year about 5.8 trillion miles. So you can see the solar system, very tiny in the comparison to a light year, but it's about 4.3 light years roughly out to Proxima Centauri. And again, our galaxy is about 100,000 light years across. So we use light years because it's much easier. If you're measuring miles, those numbers get really, really huge very, very fast. So again, you can see that about 588 quadrillion miles across our Milky Way galaxy. So light years a little bit easier to do. Well, We also want to talk a little bit about the constellation of Ophiuchus in this week's discussion as well. Ophiuchus is sometimes called the 13th zodiacal sign, and that is because the sun, moon, and planets do appear to pass through it. And a long time ago, people used the sun, moon, and planets in their apparent positions to create the horoscopes, of course, and the sun signs, if you will. Well, Ophiuchus is sort of between Scorpius and Sagittarius, and if you're born sort of between the end of November, the 17th of November to the 30th of November, roughly, you would be an Ophiuchian, if you will. Well, Ophiuchus is sometimes called a serpent bearer, and in Greek mythology, it was seen as sort of a representation of the god of medicine, and that's why he sort of has that snake wrapped around him, if you will. And that's where the symbol for medicine, sort of the snakes wrapped around a staff, comes from in modern medical journals as well. Now, you may notice that on the left-hand side, we also have a different view, and this is a Norse view. Sometimes in Norse mythology, it was considered a door. Ophiuchus was considered the door to Valhalla, or of course, sort of the afterlife, if you will, or heaven. And sometimes the Vikings also, and Icelandic people, compared it to the giant Ymir, which is sometimes known as the Screamer. So lots of different stories about Ophiuchus in the night sky. We're going to take a look at him as we shift gears here to Stellarium and take a look at how the Milky Way passes through that area of the sky as well. So as we shift gears to Stellarium, we're going to begin by facing the direction south here in our sky. And as we do so, we'll bring our pointer back into view. And you might remember that we always like to do some star hopping, use a little bit of what you know to find things you don't. If you remember, we used the handle of the Big Dipper to make an arc to this bright orange star called Arcturus, and then we could spike to Spica. And we also last week talked a little bit about the constellation of Scorpius, the scorpion, with the reddish star Antares marking its heart. Its head is up through here and its tail just a bit below the horizon. This is the sky about 10 p.m., but by around 11:30 or so, you can see the whole scorpion here in our night sky. Well, as mentioned, we want to talk about Ophiuchus, that 13th zodiacal constellation. And if we do so, we will come right up above Scorpius. Basically, Ophiuchus looks like he is standing atop of the scorpion right through here. And he has that snake that he's holding in his hands. Here's that little triangle which marks the head of the snake, and the snake's body sort of comes through this area here. Well, if we come back and we do want to take a look and draw in that constellation, we'll highlight one of the stars in Ophiuchus, and we can draw in Ophiuchus there, that serpent bearer. And as I mentioned, he is sometimes seen as the god of medicine. In fact, the snake, often the symbol wrapped around a staff, is sometimes seen as a symbol for medicine. And here you see Ophiuchus there. He's also been known, as we mentioned, to the Norse as Valhalla, or as Ymir the giant, and he does look a little bit like a giant there, standing on top of that scorpion there in the nighttime sky. Well, we'll take that down, that constellation. If you find Ophiuchus, again, right below him is going to be the scorpion. And as we talked about last time, that reddish star Antares marks its heart. Here is the head of the scorpion, and we can highlight Antares there, and we'll draw in both that scorpion and or Ophiuchus, who is sort of standing on top of him there in the night sky, sort of crushing the scorpion, if you will. Well, other things that we wanted to talk a little bit about this week are the Milky Way. And you may know the Milky Way right over through here if we sort of rotate our view around a little bit to the southwest and east. At 10 p.m. tonight, you're going to see that Milky Way, if you will, and it's going to sort of be coming up right behind the scorpion, and it's going to stretch across our sky from sort of this southeast position all the way into the north. And if you follow the Milky Way, it's going to sort of pass up through this area here. And you might remember last week we talked about three bright stars, Vega, Deneb, and Altair, which form that summer triangle, and there they are again. And so the Milky Way is going to pass up through that area. The Milky Way is our home galaxy. We see it edge on from this vantage point, is the way we see it from our position in the solar system. And the solar system is perpendicular to the Milky Way, which is why we see sort of the Milky Way, it will shift its position over the course of the evening. So if we go ahead and we're to put time into motion, for instance, and we can see our Milky Way sort of changing its position a bit there. I'm going to head all the way till a little bit later at night here. And there we go till around really just a little bit after midnight. One of the reasons I wanted to do that is I often tell folks that there's a great way to find the Milky Way if you're having some struggles because you might be in the city, is to look for a group of stars sort of right down here, which is called Sagittarius the Archer, and it sort of looks like a teapot shape. There's the base of the teapot, that spout, the lid, and the handle. And again, Sagittarius, one of those constellations of the zodiac as well, along with Scorpius and of course Ophiuchus. And there we see them drawn in the night sky. Sagittarius is supposed to be an archer, but to me looks a lot more like a teapot shape, if you will, there. And if you do happen to stay up till midnight tonight, you're going to get Jupiter and Saturn right next to it there in the night sky. Pretty easy to spot them. Jupiter, basically the fourth brightest thing we see in our sky, and Saturn also very bright, so pretty easy to spot these two, which are going to be right next to Sagittarius. Well, I do hope you get out and take a look at your nighttime sky. This is Sean Lotch from Astronomy Center. I wish you happy stargazing and keep your eye on the sky.